Let's get the show on the road. What we're looking at here is the Primary Arms new redesigned SLx 1-6x24 low power variable scope. It's a fairly inexpensive scope. I think it's in low 300s, 330 or thereabouts. I don't remember exactly pricing, but it should be somewhere in there. If not, I'll update it. This is generally not the kind of scope you see me reviewing, so why am I looking at this one? For a really simple reason. It is the first scope anywhere near this price range that I can think of that has a truly nuclear daylight bright fiber dot in the reticle. Prior to this, I think the least expensive scope of the reticle of this type was the Vortex PST Gen 2 1-6x24, which would be interesting to compare to this one. But even that one at the regular prices is usually around 600, although oftentimes you can see them on sale for 500. This one is in the low 300s, which kind of changes things a little bit. So I got my hands on this thing. It was just announced. I've been playing with this for a little bit. And one of the things that I also wanted to see is whether the rest of the scope does justice to the reticle. And I think it does. I'll be honest with you. This is going to be fairly quick. I've been shooting with this for a while. I haven't shot with it very far. I haven't taken it past a couple of 100 yards. The reticle is wire. It is nicely done. There are milliradian holes, so it's a milliradian reticle, which I like. It's called ACSS NOVA, I believe. The horizontal holes are just regular lead holes, which is perfectly reasonable for a scope of this type. I don't usually care. I'm not going to use it for anything long range. All the reticle lines are nice and bold. The reticle is very, very visible even without the illumination. But the illumination, which is one single dot, is truly bright. The sun is setting now, so it's getting a little bit darker. In these conditions, it's not hard to see illuminated reticle. I was out here earlier. The sun was out that way. I was essentially shooting into the sun, trying to see between flare and, I live in Albuquerque. We have no shortage of sun out here. And I was trying to see between flare and other things if I'm ever going to lose the reticle. And I tried to shoot somewhat different directions, closer target, a little bit further targets, angling a little bit into the sun, a little bit away to the sun, trying to induce some sort of an odd optical aberration. There is some flare on one power. There is some distortion. It's very well corrected for the price, but it's not a $3,000 scope. I can run this thing pretty fast. I never lost the target. I never lost the reticle. And the way they did the distortion is intelligent. So if you go on one power and all of the low power variables, almost all, there's always going to be some amount of distortion. The exit pupil gets pretty large. Your eye kind of moves around in it, and if you're at the edge of the exit pupil, you can oftentimes see funky things. And there's no exception here, right? So on one power, when the exit pupil is large enough, when I'm all the way at the edge, I start seeing kind of borders of the reticle. So there is some other things you can see. All of the somewhat all the different optical artifacts all the different unwanted optical artifacts are really contained to the edges. I messed a little bit with the eyepiece to set it up for my eye. On low power variables, you basically have to do this on one power to set it up so it's true 1x, and I was very easily able to do that. And even when you're moving around and when the edges look a little bit different, sometimes they kind of swim slightly as you move. The center, and a significant portion of the sweet spot, is pretty big. The center of the reticle stays completely undisturbed, and that's a big thing. That is very, very important with low power variables. The reticle is in a second focal plane, so the apparent size of the reticle doesn't change as you change magnification, but the real size with respect to the target obviously does. It is a 7.62x39 gun, so I did a little bit of holding with the reticle, but not too much. Once again, I was shooting a couple 100 yards. So I was just trying to see if the reticle subtensions are accurate. They look like they are. That was a pretty good thing. I don't know what else to tell you. It's a simple scope. The battery hasn't run out yet. I don't know what the battery life is supposed to be. I use it like I use any normal scope. Usually for scopes like this, with this bright of a fiber dot, it's tens of hours, not thousands, but that's the same for all rifle scopes. The turrets are covered. I took them off because I was messing with a zero. There are simple covers underneath the perfectly normal turrets. I did not check tracking. These are 0.1 milliradian clicks. And what's it, 10 milliradian per turn? Yeah, 10 milliradian per turn turrets, no zero stop, none of that nonsense. The click is nothing special. They're pretty mushy turrets, but you know what? They stayed zeroed so far. They look to be sealed. At least I can't easily get into the turret. Not that I would want to. If you want to reset it, I think there are a couple of set screws here. You can reset it. I didn't bother. I set it in, and I was done with it until I changed them, and then I set it in again. I will say, though, that while sighting in, it adjusted the way it was supposed to do. Right? Since this is a milliradian turret on 6 power, this is a sloped base, a sloped mount. This is a PAGLX mount. Is it sloped? I don't remember, whatever. There was about, I think, 6 milliradian of offset. When I first put this in, I measured it with the reticle. It looked about right. I adjusted what I thought would be 1 milliradian. I shot again. It moved 1 milliradian up. I did this step by step, kind of to see what's happening and to within the accuracy of this gun to shoot. No, it's reasonable, but it's not the most accurate gun in the world. It adjusted just fine. Am I ever going to take the turrets off, use it for dialing distance? No. But it's going to sit here for a little bit. It matches the gun well. I like to, ammo is cheap. This is a gun I can shoot a fair bit with, so I'm going to keep it on here for a little bit, and then later I will transition it onto a 458 SOCOM and see how it handles recoil. So far, with the 7.62x39 and quite a few magazines, Z0 didn't shift. The scope is working fine. Nothing went awry on me. So I am pretty happy. As far as the quality of the controls, well, there isn't much here in terms of controls that you normally use. The illumination turret has fairly distinct clicks. There are no offsettings between illuminated settings. So it's basically 0, then 1 through 11. 11 is the highest, and 0 is the only setting that is off. The magnification ring has this little lever. It's I think IPA uses it in a few different scopes. It's when I first got it, the magnification ring was quite stiff. Since then, I've used it a little bit, smoothed out. It's takes a little bit of effort, but it's not too bad. I can't say that this bothers me. And when I was doing some transition drills from close to far target, just for shits and giggles, I would come up, shoot a close target, change magnification, shoot a far target. When trying to go quick, the stiffness of the magnification ring did not bother me. It did not throw off my aim. It did not make me drop everything, go, none of that sort of stuff. It basically, this is 6, this is 1, went on 6, right? So it seems to work fine. Is it as light and smooth as expensive, very expensive scopes? No. Is it bad? Also no. I've seen much, much worse for a lot more money. So that's basically it. My initial look is unusually positive. It's very uncommon for me to find something in this price range where I don't find something to bitch about for a half hour or so. Here, maybe because I have never been a fan of the SLx low power variable scopes from Primary Arms. Maybe my expectations were low. I don't know. This scope was a pleasant surprise. I wanted to see it because of the reticle, but I ended up liking the whole thing. So that's that. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. If there's anything I missed, put in the comments, and I'll be happy to update this. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.